Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose. I love comic books. I love talking about them. I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below. I've also posted a link to the Marvel fan site that I have plot synopsis and character bios for this issue. We are looking at the finale of the Mutant Massacre. It's not quite a finale per se. The finale really was the previous issue 213 on the X-Men side. However, this is sort of an epilogue. I guess epilogue is the right word. And Uncanny X-Men 214 from 1986, cover by Arthur Adams, although he is uncredited, with inks by Barry Windsor Smith. So Art Adams pencils and Barry Windsor Smith inks it. Now, this is so John Romita Jr.'s last issue was 211. And so 212, 213, and now 214 are all done by fill in artists. And we're going to be working our way through a bunch of fill in artists from now until Mark Silvestri takes over. Now, Mark Silvestri will do 220, and then 221 will be another guest artist, and then I believe Mark Silvestri takes over completely in no, my bad. My bad. I think Mark Silvestri does like 218. Sorry. Mark Silvestri will take over in 220. So Mark Silvestri will also do a fill in 218, and I think Chris Claremont says, "Give me that guy." But the next issue will be done by Alan Davis again. Then we'll have Jackson Geist doing two issues, then Mark Silvestri, then Brett Blevins, and then finally Mark Silvestri takes over. So beautiful cover here. I love this hair here on Storm. But yeah, a bunch of fill-ins. You would think X-Men, being the number one book, would have the top of the litter, whoever they wanted to, but no, they just so many fill-ins. And so here we are. Lila Cheney's having a concert, and here's Allison Blair in the keyboards, and Barry Windsor Smith does the pencils, but that's it. He is not inking this, and he is not coloring this book here. And you can see the crowd's going wild, and she's got Malice's necklace here. And so Malice goes, "Having fun, sweets?" And Allison Blair says, "Go away. You don't exist. You're an illusion. Leave me alone." And she goes, "How can I when I'm a part of you? Look around. Listen, they love Leela. They'll love you more. That is, if you give them the chance. If you take the center stage spotlight, the glory that's rightfully yours." And she goes, "I can't." Scared? Poor bunny. Then stay in the shadows where it's safe, and no one will ever know or care Allison Blair ever exist. And you can see Dazzler is sweating here, and she's like, she had to kind of let go of it once the world find out she was a mutant, and she thinks here, it isn't fair. All I ever wanted was to sing, to make people happy, to be loved. Is that so wrong? Is that so much to ask? And suddenly you can see Leela. Some people say Lila, I say Leela. Looks behind. You can see that there is a glow behind her. And Dazzler is going nuts using her mutant power. She is able to take sound and create light with it. And of course, the people don't know that it's Dazzler doing this, and so they think it's part of the show. And you can see here that they are going nuts. And so Leela goes to Dazzler and said, "Got a reason for that stunt you pulled?" And she said, "It felt right." And Leela says, "Fair enough." And she says, "Do it again and you're fired. You think those people out there are blind or stupid or what? If one of them connects that light show with Dazzler, your cover's blown. And she says, I'm touched by your concern. Or could it be that you're more worried about yourself now that I'm starting to emerge from my shell and you're scared of a little competition because you know I'm better? And Leela says, that's madness. And she goes, I say sanity. Remember, she's under the control of Malice here. I've been running and hiding for too long, and I'm not doing it anymore. I'm through settling for crumbs and playing second best. Enjoy the top spot, Leela, because in no time at all, I'm taking it away from you. And she starts walking away, and you can see the light show kind of as she's walking here. So, all right. And so, at Professor Xavier's school, and the title here with Malice toward all, as I mentioned before, Chris Claremont is writing no plots by Barry Windsor Smith. He is simply the penciler. This is Barry Windsor Smith's last X-Men, so he will have done in the modern era 3 issues, four issues, Lifelight 1 and 2, the Wolverine solo story, and then this one. So yeah. Imagine what could have been, but I don't think Barry ever produced. He wasn't very fast and did a lot. You can see he does a lot of dashes, but it is those dashes that are going to inspire Jim Lee, who will be coming in a few years. So Storm says, "Well, Rogue." And Rogue's looking underneath Cerebro. Remember the battle with Sabretooth? And she says, it's a lost cause. Cerebro's design is way beyond my knowledge and experience. Professor Shearer put this mess together. I figure he's about the only one who can fix this. Till then, boss, our mutant detecting scanner system is only so much esoteric, expensive, high-tech junk. And so, finishing our credits here, Bob Wiacek is inking this. Tom Rozakowski, longtime letterer. Glynis Oliver, longtime colorist. Anna Senti, longtime editor. And Jim Shooter, he's at the end of his run as editor-in-chief. By the way, rest in peace, Jim Shooter. About a month ago, he passed away as of this recording. And so you can see that Storm gives Rogue coffee. Psylocke blames herself. She says, it's my fault that she let Sabretooth inflict that much damage. And Rogue says, hey, you faced him and lived. That counts for a lot. And she says, I made a mistake. And so Storm says, next time then, be more careful. And Rogue says, we drove that turkey away, boss, but you can bet he'll be back, probably with the rest of the Marauders, to finish us off. We in any shape to tackle them? And Storm says no. And so she goes, she says she needs some air and takes off and says, I have Psylocke give her a holler if you guys need him. And Storm asks Psylocke where are Callisto and Wolverine, and she says that they're in the danger room training, and we are going to so she's gonna Psylink, and they're fighting for real. And she says they aren't holding back, and she's like, we have to stop them before someone is hurt. And Storm says, leave them be, Psylocke. There is no danger. And Psylocke says, how can you say that as the two of them are fighting? And she says, I have fought them both. I know their capabilities, and I trust their judgment. So they're basically sparring. That's all it is. So, but they're testing themselves against, she trusts that, they won't kill each other. That's essentially what she's doing here. And Wolverine says, getting slow in your old age, Kal. And she laughs here and pushes him with her legs here. She says, you getting clumsy. And she says, you got your fancy claws, slice through anything. but the reach is as long as your arm. Mine's longer. And she throws the knife at him here, and he blocks it. And he says, "Nice try. Throat shot would do the trick if it hit." And so Callisto says she wants to go after the Marauders, but she has a debt to the ones that survive. She has, as a leader, she has responsibilities, whether she likes it or not. And Wolverine um, gets a cigarette here. And so later, um, she is uh, so many characters, I tell you. He's with Psylocke, and she's telling him about the trying to see fixing Cerebro. And she says, "You on edge, Bets?" And he says, "Why?" And he pops his claws, and then she hits him with the Psy Shield, and she yells at him and says, "I'm a psychoblaster, and I could have disrupted your brain, crippled or killed you." And he says, "My risk." And he says, "Why?" And Wolverine says, "Sabretooth nailed you. If I wanted to see if you could be caught off guard again." And he says, "If you've truly been an enemy, Wolverine, what makes you think you'd still be alive now to pass judgment?" And she says, "Sabretooth survived." He says, "He was lucky. I don't like playing games with my power." And Wolverine says, "Me neither, but the X-Men are riding a real rough road. If I don't know your capability, skill, and character, I might misjudge them in a scrap that could cost us all." And the phone ringings, and Wolverine answers. I love the silhouette here. I love the red. He's like, "Xavier's. Hello, Leela. Trouble with Allison Blair? I'll tell Ododo. We'll check it out." So this will be a good time to tell you, I do have quite a few playlists available. I have an X-Men playlist where I started with Classic X-Men #1, and we are now to current. I have a New Mutants playlist. I have an X Factor playlist. And I have an X Universe playlist where I cover everything in reading order. So if you are interested in this Chris Claremont era of X-Men and X-related stuff, feel free to check that out. I also have the Marvel Fanfare 4 issues that Claremont did with Michael Golden and Paul Smith. I have the Wolverine Limited Series. I have Kitty Pryde and the Wolverine. I have lots and lots of stuff in there, so feel free to check those out here. So you can see Dazzler here, and she is going crazy. And Wolverine says, "Very nasty. Whole place is on edge, ready to explode." And I like this panel here. Everybody kind of in different heights here. Wolverine is supposed to be short, so anyway, Psylocke says that Dazzler's the cause. The light show is intensifying the crowd's state. And she says it's almost psychotic. And she's has her side shields up. And Rogue says, "I didn't think Dazzler had it in her." And Wolverine says, "People change, kid. Why are we here, Storm? Allison's an adult. If she's tired of hiding out, it's her choice." And Storm, this just looks so awesome. This is a beautiful, beautiful. Now, the only thing I would change is she's in a little bit of a 3/4 perspective, but not too much. I would just have had the hair kind of go here, and I know he wanted to just proceed with the mohawk, but I probably wouldn't have had the hair. I would have just kind of showed the front of it, kind of like this, and then not drawn this. But I get it. He just draws her with this beautiful hair here. Anyway, Storm says, "Perhaps, but we owe her at least a warning about the Marauders. She is a mutant, and she was once associated with the X-Men. In their eyes, that makes her a target." And so she sees, well, look who's here. I was beginning to fear you'd never show up." And suddenly she attacks the X-Men and takes out Wolverine. So she's using that light show here. Now, Glynis Oliver is the colorist, but I bet you money that Barry Windsor Smith is asking her for what colors to use, because this here, the pinks, the greens, the yellows are Barry Windsor Smith friggin' colors. So I bet you he told her what to use, but let her sort of color take some liberties and some things. But I bet you this, because these colors, the greens here, it's just his. And so you can see that they're hitting everybody. So she gets those beams of light and can turn them solid here. So and so she says, "I saved you for last, sugar," meaning Rogue, "because we've an old score to settle. Remember, not so long ago, you joined the X-Men when you tried to kill me." And so I never covered that because I didn't cover the Dazzler series here. And she says, "I never forgot or never forgave." So if you want to look in, it's Dazzler 22 through 24. But as I mentioned, those are not issues that I currently have on it, because I've never bought them. So I only try to share with you stuff that I have, even though I use digital here. So, and so she is about to take out Rogue here, and you can see hits her here with this laser bolt here. And so this is so badass here. This looks so cool here. And so you see how powerful Rogue is. And then we get our cover shot here as Storm grabs her. And she says, "I do not know what's come over you, Allison, but you have done enough damage." And Dazzler says, "Silly Storm. Malice has barely begun." And then you use this to just denote confusion here, and sees that Malice is going around and now gets on Wolverine. And now Wolverine is going to attack them. He's got his claws out and tries to attack it. He's going to kill. And you can see that Wolverine now has Malice's, whatever you'd call that, necklace, perhaps. I was probably not the word necklace, but I can't think of any. And she's like, "I don't die so easily." And so Storm punches her, knocks her out. He's like, "I can't sort this out now. I gotta find a way to figure this out here." And so Rogue goes to check on Wolverine, and Psylocke yells at her not to touch it. And so this cop here, they're ready to go in. They recognize that it's Dazzler, and to keep the civilians back. And if there's mutants in there, he thinks, well, he'll have to take care of it. So, and Psylocke's like, "You're a rogue," and she's like, "Prove it, and then do something about it." And she takes off here. And so Storm's like, "First Wolverine and now Rogue." And she's like, "Is Dazzler's madness infectious?" And she goes out and says, "I'm Rogue. You want a party?" And so we're gonna get now, now that things are settled in, inside the room, we're gonna have time for a little bit of conversations. So Wolverine says Rogue's attacking cops, and Storm says, "Nope, it's not her any more than it was you or Dazzler." And Psylocke says her name is Malice, affiliated with the Marauders and Sinister, when she possessed Rogue. And Dazzler says, "Oh no, sorry, not Dazzler." Psylocke continues here, "It's empathic in nature, keying off the emotional centers of its host brains. Since most psychic shields are concentrated around the rational mind, Malice assaults effectively bypass them, rendering them impotent." So, and so Storm says Malice thrives on balance, and so a choker, that's what it's called, says that only that choker that we can see when they're possessed. And she says, "You are a telepath, Psylocke. Can you deal with Malice?" And she says, "Not while it shares rogue consciousness. Her mind is virtually impossible to probe, even when she's cooperating." And Dazzler is just so angry at this whole thing. And so Psylocke, look at this, no borders on the panels here. And Psylocke says, for me to act effectively, we must shift Malice into a more accessible vessel. And Dazzler says, how about me? I'll risk anything to nail that fiend. And Psylocke continues, better Storm, to use a mind I'm familiar with, one with whom I've shared a rapport, someone perhaps you trust. Malice knows you. Oh, sorry. So that would be Storm saying, Malice knows you too well, Dazzler. That makes the risk too great. I shall be the bait. And Wolverine says, and if this plans fail, don't worry, darling. Malice won't get away. And we're now outside here. And Rogue is like, some fun, eh, fellas? And she's letting everybody knows that she's Rogue, and she's with the X-Men here, so she is making the X-Men's life very difficult. And so Dazzler starts using her powers. Here comes Rogue, and so you see the fight, and Psylocke takes her, and Psylocke tells Rogue to get ready. She's making her move, and so she decides, hey, I am going to take Storm here. And it says here, even without her elemental power, Storm's like a force of nature. A goddess born to rule, yells Storm. And she's like, my strength, my will, my soul, forever my own. And Allison's going to try and help her, and she's like, nope, this is Storm's battle. If Winter here will do far more harm than good. And Storm just says, you lose, Malice. And you can see Malice say no as she grabs the choker here and pulls it out. And she goes, I win. The shadow side of myself, our dark nature, is what sustains you and gives you the power over us. But it also part of what makes me leader of the X-Men. The more you pushed it to the front, the better able you made me to resist you. You could not seize or suborn that aspect of my being, which I had long ago embraced. You could not tempt me with what I had already possessed. And you can see that it's sort of dissipating here. And so this reporter is speaking about the X-Men here, and Dazzler's like, man, this should, if anyone's to blame, it should be me. I'm going to turn myself in. And Storm says, what would that accomplish beyond possibly defeating a star's natural martyr complex? Do you still yearn so desperately for the spotlight, Allison? And Dazzler says, that isn't fair, Storm. And Storm continues, what occurred tonight was not your fault. You were possessed by Malice. You are innocent, Dazzler. We simply cannot prove it. And Dazzler says, what's this about? You say Malice is hooked up with this outfit called the Marauders. Why the heck pick on me? And Storm says, you have considerable power and you are our friend. You were Malice's means to get us. And so, of course, she said that she tried to, but now the X-Men have become criminals. Your reputation completely discredited. And Storm says, we shall survive. And then she said, Dazzler says, will I? She says, not alone. I know this is not the life you wanted, but at the least among the X-Men, you will have a chance. By yourself, you have none. And Dazzler's like, you're still going to accept me after all this? And we're going to have now pretty much the core group coming up. And so these are going to be the X-Men till at least for a while. I know in we get some stuff, but for at least issue 250, we're going to have the core of Dazzler, Rogue, Psylocke, Wolverine, Storm, We already showed Longshot on X-Men Annual 10. That's in the playlist. And then the only one missing is Havoc, who will join in 219. So, and um so Storm says, "What are friends for? We best start moving." And we have already been here too long. Wolverine, Logan, are you all right? And you see him getting mad, and suddenly she yells, I love this, how it's written, Wolverine! And she pulls up his claws here. And he says, what are you doing? And they're like, it's Malice. He's possessed again. And he says, the blazes I am, Red, it's her. She's the one. And Rogue's like, crazy. That's Storm. Open your eyes. Use your senses. You're killing one of your own. But he's like, my senses, they told me. And then he apologizes. He's like, I was so sure. So we're going to have a thing. I don't know if it's really ever revealed. He's having issues with his senses. Part of it is he's been very injured. He hasn't given himself time to heal. So anyway, he picks her up again. He says, I was so sure here. He says, when I caught your scent, I thought you were Malice. And Rogue says, you misunderstood, Wolverine. Storm's own strength of command for Malice's influence. He says, she continues, there's no trace of Malice in either of their consciousness. And she goes, how do we know you're clean, mind reader? Who vouches for the team telepath? And Rogue says, maybe some things, Daz, you have to be taken on faith. And so Dazzler says, that's asking a lot. And Rogue says, if we can't trust ourselves anymore. Wolverine says, then the time's come to pack things up and go our separate ways, because in all the ways that really matter, the X-Men are through. And Storm says, not yet, Wolverine, not without a fight. And then we see that Malice has possessed that cop. And we get to our last three panels. Bold, brave words, Storm, but Wolverine's ring true. Trust springs from the heart. But if that heart has been touched and tainted with malice, all the talk, all the arguments, all the convincing in the world won't heal all the wounds or put things right again. Face facts, Storms. You've lost. I won. Next issue, Old Soldiers. Uncanny X-Men 214 by Chris Claremont, Barry Windsor Smith, and Bob Wiacek. Like and subscribe. I do thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.